My name is Dr. Goley, Don Goley from Humboldt State. I've been here since 1996, and I'm the marine mammalogist here. I've been honored to come to know this land and the people who have stewarded it since time immemorial, as well as the people who are engaged and amazing stewards now. And so it's my pleasure to talk to you about some of the work that we've found and some of the things that we've done. I don't mind if your videos are on, if you want to say howdy. I am going to ask a couple questions in the middle of the lecture, so feel free to just chat. This is a group of people who care deeply about conservation and about this area. And so please, it's not a formal get together. It's just sitting around the fire chatting about marine mammals and conservation. Thank you, Justin, for inviting me. It's an honor to be part of this series. And I really appreciate all that the Friends of the Lost Coast do for its community, as well as for the nature that it helps to steward. So I will stop there. Is there any questions before we begin? Oh, hi, Andrew. I'm going to try to share my screen. Hopefully I can remember how to do these things. I'm going to share screen one. Let's see if I do this right. I'm going to move us over here for a second. So yeah, please, if anybody has a question during the time, can you see my slides? Is that what you're seeing?
No, we're seeing your desktop right now.
Okay, I will stop sharing. It's a pretty picture of Hawaii, but you don't need to see that. So I will do this. Sorry. I tried to make it so I would. Okay. Here we go. We even practiced, didn't we, Justin?
We did.
So as I was saying, feel free as we go along to put your hand up or jump in or jump out, and because I really like to answer questions along the way if you have any. So share my screen again. Ta-da. How is that? Is that better?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So today I want to talk about conservation and community, and Justin was telling me that the theme of this series really is conservation successes and challenges and solutions. And so I'm going to give you a sort of brief overview of a few conservation projects that we're involved in and some of the solutions which involve some of you and community as a whole. And so tonight's talk is going to be focused on thinking about these long-term baseline monitoring programs and how they help us to learn more about animals, in my case, marine mammals, so that we can be more informed people that are engaged in conservation in these groups. The significance of community stewardship, this is something I believe in deeply. And it's not a community that I'm building, but communities that we bring together for the common cause. I'll talk to you about one of the chapters will be on our elephant seal study out there. Another will be on the marine mammal stranding program. And then hopefully I'll talk about a path ahead, which is a harbor seal One Health program. And I will highlight the conservation components of those different programs. Does that sound good to you? Yes? Okay.
Sounds great.
Sounds good. Okay, so let me talk to you a little bit about the role that marine mammal natural history plays in conservation and the role that the natural history plays in our ability to study these animals and to inform these management processes or projects. So right now, these are critters that we study as part of our marine mammal program here. This is a gray whale. These are stellar sea lions, both of which happen to be long migrators. They migrate quite some distance. They're very long-lived, and this is the path of most gray whales. We do study some gray whales that stay here along the California coast. And then this is the path of elephant seals. And so they come here, up here around the Northern California coast, which I'll talk to you about our colony, but they disperse. They migrate out to the Aleutian Islands, the males typically do, and the females go out all the way out in the Eastern Pacific. And so I want you to think about for a second, the role that being long-lived and migratory, what are those challenges to our ability to, one, study them, and to two, sort of really inform conservation processes. I also want you to think about how our habitat is a challenge for us to do the same thing. So when you think about the challenges of living on the North Coast for a marine mammal or along the North Coast, you have to think of it as being a super remote area, vast and rugged, inaccessible beaches, limited population areas, and it makes it challenging to observe marine mammals on land or at sea. And so how do we overcome those challenges so we can even get to know these marine mammals well enough, as I said, to inform conservation? These long-term baseline studies and conservation, these are the challenges facing the North Coast. So not only the marine mammals are kind of challenging to find, they're long-lived, they swim a long way away, but our coast makes it pretty challenging to gain access to them. And then there are other challenges that are facing the North Coast, which include climate change with the subsets of sea level rise, warming ocean, increasing terrestrial temperatures, and increasing frequency and ferocity of storms. And Justin and I were just talking, there's a fierce and frequent storm that's coming in tomorrow, I think. As well as thinking about human impacts, and not as much up here, but increased population size, increased pollution. These are things that are impacting the marine mammals as well. So how do we get a sort of detailed understanding of all that so that we can inform conservation? So this is a question I want to ask you. So how might long-term studies, why would we have to use sort of long-term studies as the basis for understanding marine mammals? And how can that aid in their conservation? Anybody want to take a stab at that? Like, why are long-term studies important for marine mammals? And how are they going to help us understand how to conserve these species? Any ideas? You can throw something in the chat if you'd like. Anybody? You're all so quiet. Well, part of the thing comes down to that long-term studies will enable you to gain access to animals that might rarely visit there or only visit there seasonally. And it gives you more of an opportunity to gain access to those animals over time. And that is going to be what is going to be the most important to inform management decisions. So long-term studies on the North Coast include a couple things, getting a baseline understanding, basically just who is here, right? And when are they here? Where are they? Why are they here? And that's kind of the before. So before anything goes on, we just need to have some basic understanding of what's happening here. And then from that understanding, we can see, did something change from what we expected, right? Because you have a baseline, which tells you what you're going to expect. And then you can see, did something change, right? And that's kind of the meat of what we do with conservation. And then we can address specific biological or conservation concerns with targeted research, right? Oh my gosh, there's this spike in marine mammal strandings. What was happening there? How can we bring our resources to bear on that problem? So today, I'm going to highlight two of these long-term research programs, our elephant seal work on the Lost Coast in your neck of the woods, and marine mammal strandings. And I'm going to emphasize our community collaborations there, which includes many of you in the room today and friends of the Lost Coast. And then I'm going to propose a new collaborative research effort in Northern California. So our approach to marine mammal science is based on building community. So we kind of walk the walk here. So I've been here again for some time, and we've built a wonderful, thriving undergraduate and graduate student community here in Humboldt that has been working towards addressing, building this baseline understanding of many marine mammal species along the coast. We're super grateful to be welcomed into the community of tribal members and other community members to sort of learn from each other's understanding of these natural places and these animals and these places. So we're excited to join in these collaborative stewardship program projects, which I'll talk a little bit about today. We have lovely working relationships with state and national parks and California Department of Fish and Wildlife and BLM and other sort of government agencies that are, again, charged with stewarding this land. And then every single community member who has called in and chatted with us or asked us a question, this has really been an important component of our work. And so we are grateful to all of you for joining us in these stewardship efforts. So the majority of this work was started, as I mentioned, with our graduate student program and colleagues along the coast. And again, everything from stranding work to sort of offshore or nearshore work with seals, sea lions, and whales. So it's been a very active research program. Again, a lot of it has been to form this baseline understanding of what's normal in Northern California. So I want to talk to you about a couple conservation successes. First, we have to know why these animals needed to be conserved. I'm sorry, my computer blinks out sometimes. Can you see it still? Yeah, thumbs up. Yeah.
Yes, looks
Okay,
good.
Thanks. So conservation successes, northern elephant seals. They were hunted to near extinction in the 1800s. And there were less than 20 left in Mexican waters and in oceanic caves. And from that came another sort of rebound of this group with protections from Mexico and then protections from the US. So now there's over 1,500, 150,000 elephant seals. And the most recent colony has now formed up here in Año Nuevo. So most of these animals were located down here in Mexico, and you see scattered different populations growing up and down the coast. And so I'm going to talk to you more about this conservation success of elephant seals as they found a lovely haulout up here along the Lost Coast Trail. So this is a newly established colony, established around 2015. It had the potential to grow super quickly, but there is a conflict, and this is where the conservation part comes in, right? There's a conflict with human recreational use, as well as there's a potential conflict with climate change, right? So they're at the center of this. And given that it's a brand new colony, much of our work has been establishing these counts to see how that colony has grown and how it's growing. So our baseline understanding has been looking at the impacts of colony growth on recreational use as they come to enjoy the Lost Coast Trail as we do, and thinking about the impacts of climate effects on colony growth as the land gets hotter and as the sea level comes up and as increased winter storms and king tides combine to wash away much of their habitat. And so I'll show you some slides in a little bit about the most recent event and show you some of the repercussions of this kind of climate issue. So all of this work has been done under a National Marine Fisheries Service permit. And I want to sort of emphasize that the pictures that you'll see were taken under this research permit and shouldn't be shared or copied. So first to understand is the natural history, right? We were talking about that earlier. So what is the natural history of elephant seals and how does that impact our ability to understand them, and two, our ability to implement changes that will help to conserve the species? So at any time of the year, you can see an elephant seal on a colony. And these are the different age classes and sex classes. So you have subadult males, adult females, juveniles, and babies or pups and weanlings, animals that have just weaned. And these bars just represent when you can find them on the coast, when you can see them on land. And so subadult males you can see during the breeding season, which is now, and adult males. The molting season is in the middle of summer, and then they come back to breed in early winter and stay throughout the year. Adult females come during the breeding season, they're there right now, and then they leave for a super short period of time and then come back to molt in April, May, June. The juveniles don't come during breeding season, right? They're not old enough to breed. They come during molting season in the spring, and then they come back in the fall just to rest. So there's a bunch of juveniles, a bunch of young teenage elephant seals on the beaches around that time. And then the pups are born, obviously, during the breeding season, and then they molt after their moms leave them. And so this is an example here of when you have the pups here. This is a pup, a really new pup that's been born, and a mom. This is a molting elephant seal. They molt all of their skin out and they look really, really sad during that time. And then this is post-molt when everybody has a sort of shiny new coat. What this tells you is that we are able to go out to the colony, and we go out every week, and we're able to do counts, and we're able to track the trajectory and the health of this colony. Any questions, you guys? Are we good? Good? Okay. So what we do is we count seals. So we count them from the coast. This is one of my grad students, Emma. We take photos of them, and then we establish who's been out there and how many there are at any given time. And then we tag and mark them. Over here is what we're spending a lot of time doing now. We mark them with Clairol hair dye. And from that hair dye, we can stand on the beach and identify these animals without having to go down to the beach. I see somebody in the chat. So is it correct to guess busiest on beach in January through March? Yeah, January through March is the biggest time for pups and males, adult males and females. But honestly, the most animals you'll find is in the springtime, when both the juveniles are back and the adult females are back. Sometimes we have over 700 animals on the beach at that time. This is kind of the most energetic time, most dynamic. Males and females. Males are chasing each other. Females are giving birth. They're breeding. It's craziness. But the other time is the most populated time. That's a good question. The other thing that we do is we tag our weaned seals, and because then we can identify when they come back and when they give birth, and and make estimates of how that colony is going to grow based on that. And we also track the tags that other colonies have put on. So different colonies along the coast put on different color flipper tags. And then we can look at those tags and look at that number and check in with them and say, hey, we just saw your 2-year-old male elephant seal. And they'll say, oh, it was born on this day. And so I just got a call from Pedros Blancas all the way down south about a female here that had just given birth, one of our females that had just given birth down there. So it's exciting to sort of track them throughout time. Something else in the chat. Oh yeah, you're welcome, Andrew. So those are the things that we do out there to keep track of these animals and to do counts that will help inform our conservation plans. So the tag sites, this is the number of observed tagged individuals, and this is the different colors. Our King Range animals have blue tags. The Point Reyes animals have pink tags. The Año Nuevo animals have green tags, and the Pedros Blancas animals have white tags. So the vast majority now, we're getting a lot more of our blue tags coming back because they have a high site fidelity. In other words, they like to come back to where they were born. But the ones that have moved away from their home colonies are mostly from Point Reyes. So the next colony down. And then the next most we see are the ones from the next colony down, which is on Año Nuevo. And the fewest that we see are from Pedros Blancas, which is the farthest away. So my grad student, Emma, is now looking into this to see how we can really understand and potentially model sort of the movement patterns of these seals. So here, I'm just showing you colony growth. Again, this is our baseline understanding, and this is just the last few years. We started this work in 2017, but from 2020 to 2021 is the red line. The yellow line is next year, etc. And this is this year, 2023 to 2024. And so you see that you have this period, this is just counting how many seals are on the colony, right? You have a big bump here in August when all the juveniles are coming to rest. You have a big bump here during the breeding season. And then you have a massive bump over here, which is when the molting is happening. And so what you're seeing here is that this year, the juvenile haul out had a higher number than we typically have. And I'll show you over here. And this is just, sorry, this isn't a very formal graph. It's just one we're using to keep track in-house. But here you see, this is a graph of total number of seals of different age classes. And so breeding males is down here. How many breeding males do we typically have? Do we have last year? how many adult females, and this is from last year's breeding season, how many pups is this red line, and then how many weaned pups is here. And what you see here is that these are the numbers we've had in the last few weeks. So we see that our colony, the number of pups is growing significantly. So there's another question. Let's see. Do local elephant seals move back and forth to other colonies? That's a great question, Mark. We are tracking that right now, and the idea is that they will settle down within the first couple years of where they're going to be. The vast majority come back to where they were born. But during that first year, juveniles, particularly juvenile males, sometimes females, kind of can explore a little bit. And sometimes they end up in a different colony. And but then after 2 or 3 years, they pretty much are settled about where they're going to be. So those pink tag females from Point Reyes, they'll come and they typically stick after they've left their colony. They'll typically stick, and then they'll have babies there, and then potentially their babies will do the same thing. So it's a really interesting idea about like how are these colonies growing and how is that all working? So yeah, so right now we have 215 pups or so. And we are looking forward to seeing what the peak numbers are going to be. And we should get the peak numbers of pups on the colony should be next week. And you see that this colony, this number drops pretty quickly. And it drops pretty quickly because those pups turn into weaned pups, right? So after 4 or 5 weeks, the females leave, they go off to sea, and they just leave their pup on the beach and say, good luck, see you later. And that pup has to sort of figure out what to do at that point. And so you have these piles of weaned pups that kind of congregate. They're super duper fat, and then they will kind of sink. They'll kind of wither away a little bit and then decide it's time to go off to sea, and then they go off. Super high mortality at that rate because they don't really know what they're doing. But after that year, after their first year, if they survive that, there's a fairly high success rate of those animals over time. So the summary of this is that we think that the King Range might be a climate refuge for elephant seals. And by that, I mean that farther south, when it's super hot on the beaches during the summertime and the springtime, it may be just too hot for those elephant seals. They may be starting to sort of head north, and somehow they found this beach up here, which is pretty exciting. Our beach has a lot of area for elephant seals to expand into because there's lots of marine terrace there. The beaches are quite wide. So there's a chance for this colony to expand quite well. The only caveat is the Lost Coast Trail happens to be going through the middle of it. So we're working with BLM to see how we can help with that issue. First example of a successful range expansion of the species. And so this protected wilderness area has done exactly what protected wilderness areas do, right? It offers a safe and wonderful place for species to survive and to expand. It may serve as a colony, a seed colony for more northern expansion. And so these seals might be able to find the next colony in the next area along the coast that will make it easier for them to expand. And right now, we're seeing immigration from other colonies as the main driver of colony growth. But soon, maybe this year even, we're getting more and more females and males that were born here coming back and contributing to the population growth. So pretty soon we're going to see a big jump as all of the blue tagged seals, the seals that were weaned here, come back and are reproductive. So we're currently mapping habitat use and predicting future habitat use as part of my grad student Ashley Jacobs' work. And we're looking forward to doing that. So I wanted to show you a couple of interesting nature nuggets from this year. This is a seal. You can see that it is a young seal. It has a head tag, which is a satellite head tag. It has a back tag, which is a radio tag. And this critter showed up on our colony. It's like, what is going on? Who is this animal? Well, obviously we can look at the tag, and you'll see here, this is a blue tag. And that blue tag is actually an animal all the way from Vandenberg Island, well down off of San Luis Obispo. So colleagues of ours were studying how juveniles move and what their success rate is, and they put these tags out, but then the tags stopped emitting, and they didn't know where this animal was. And so I called up my friend at SLO and say, hey, I think one of your seals is up here. And they came and were able to retrieve this and be able to track the movement of this seal over many, many miles. We've had many high tides and big swells. This is just from last week when we were out there. Here's a male elephant seal laying fairly high up on the beach. And you see this series of swells come in, wash him over and wash out. I also witnessed moms and babies get washed over and washed out and came back together, which was wonderful. But these high tides and big swells really do have a significant impact on our coastline. So in general, understand that King Range is one of the most prolific or potentially prolific colonies along the Pacific coast. Thanks, Darcy. It is not the most prolific right now. The Pedros Blancos and Point Reyes have 5,000 to 10,000 animals down there. There's lots more animals here. Our maximum breeding number is going to be probably around 300 this year. So we don't have as many. We are just the newest colony. And we think that there's significant opportunity for them to expand. If they explore and find the mouth of the Mattole, I can imagine that that is going to be a beautiful area for them too. So it's not, it is the newest ones, but not the old one. Lurking predators offshore here, yeah. So there are, killer whales really do like elephant seals. I didn't show you a picture of this because it is close to dinner, but there was one of the females on our colony has a massive shark bite out of her. We noticed her last 2 weeks ago, and then this week she gave birth to a pup. So she seems to be potentially able to have a successful reproductive event. And then we've had over 220 pups born so far on the colony, which is, like I showed you before, significantly higher than in the past. And you can see here, we even have some females that have 2 pups that didn't give birth to 2 pups, but now are nursing 2 pups. And that could potentially be adopting other pups or collecting pups that have been washed away from their moms. We're not exactly sure. But it's been an exciting year out on the colony. I was telling Justin before we came, the road's been washed out and we're crossing in chest waders. It's not an easy place to get to, not even necessarily a safe place to get to, but we're pretty committed to sort of tracking the success of this group. We had our first wean pups last week. This is pup number 1 and this is pup number 2. They were without their moms, and you can see how fat and sassy they are. And so we've been able to sort of tag these animals so that when they go offshore and hopefully come back next year or the year after, we'll know when and where they were born. Any questions about elephant seals before I jump on to our next chapter? No?
I've got a question, Dawn.
Yeah.
So when you showed that map earlier of the colonies, maybe they're not colonies, but north of King Range, Castle Rock, Shell Island, and some spots up in Washington. Yeah. Are those considered colonies? And if so, are those now considered the northernmost elephant seal colony?
This is still the northernmost elephant seal colony. Those others have very tiny populations, and so we have up here. You were mentioning in Shell Island, etc., that they have 5 or 10 animals. So they're really teeny tiny groups of pups, and there's really not habitat to support more than that right now. So these are very unlikely right now to expand, but we keep looking along the coast to see where a more likely place would be. And so there are a couple beautiful wide sandy beaches with intertidal places that are good for elephant seals. They just have to somehow trip upon that area.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Thanks, guys. Somebody else has something in the chat. Let's see. Will I get myself back? Concerns about genetic. Exactly, Mark. It's exactly the problem. And so one of the conservation successes for elephant seals is that they have come back from 10 or 15, or the number kind of varies between estimates, and now there's 150,000 of them. But the reality is they are not very diverse because they're all coming from a very small seed population. And so one of the concerns for that, one of the conservation concerns for that is that any illness that would strike one or two could have a profound impact on the entire population because they don't have those, they don't have the diversity to sort of counter that. What do they eat, Susie? They eat deep sea critters. And so the way that elephant seals make a living is they get offshore and then they go deep. And they're deep divers, mile and a half at a time, hour or more dives at a time. And they feed on deep sea squid and fish. And then they come to the surface, get a breath, and then just go straight back down and dive. It's thought that that's possibly a predator avoidance behavior, right? Because sharks and killer whales are up here and they're down here. Sharks and killer whales can't make it down there. So it's kind of a safe place and there's some good food down there. So that's what they go and feed on. How do they use their elephant noses? Good question, Vanessa. The males have those big proboscis and they use them to vocalize, or it helps them vocalize. So what they do is they'll throw their heads back. The adult males will throw their heads back. Their nose will kind of land in their mouth, and it can be this kind of resonating chamber, very low rumbly sound. And that is it helps to have those acoustics work a little bit more effectively. Good questions, you guys. All right, I want to tell you about one of my other favorite things to think about. Is the Cal Poly Humboldt Marine Mammal Stranding Program. We started in 1997, but we've just started to do this effort-based monitoring, which means that every month you do the same stretch of beach. So you get to know what's normal along that stretch of beach. And we've been doing that for quite some time. We most recently expanded, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But for the longest time, we've been doing this just in Humboldt and kind of a little bit Del Norte County. And then we've mostly done that with our Cal Poly Humboldt undergraduate interns and graduate students. But we've recently started these community hubs, of which the Shelter Cove community is a part, and also working with tribal partners and other community partners, as well as our other groups. We're associated with the Vertebrate Museum at Humboldt State, and so many of the animals that we find on the beaches, we're able to save the skull and skin and etc., so that we can sort of help educate students as they come through here so that they can become more informed stewards as well. So I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about what stranded marine mammals are, and I'll try to zip through this because I'm sorry, I'm running a little late. I'm chatting too much. A stranded marine mammal is any whale or dolphin on the beach that's not supposed to be there. Obviously, a whale on a beach is not a good idea, but pinnipeds, seals, and sea lions can be on the beach. And if they're sick or injured or out of season or not supposed to be there, that's what we consider stranded. Marine mammals strand because of human interactions, because they're sick or starving, or normal ecological or oceanographic events, such things as harmful algal blooms or El Nino events or heat waves or predators such as killer whales. This was a harbor seal that was seen in Trinidad by some of our students, who was obviously the victim of a shark bite. And here is a little Guadalupe fur seal that was found entangled in fishing nets. And so we're trying to get an understanding for what is the cause of death of marine mammals along the coast and what are normal patterns in terms of season and timing. Human interaction and entanglements. Again, this is an animal from this year. It is something that's happens more frequently with nets that are left in the ocean. We work with Cal Fish and Wildlife as well as NOAA to as part of the whale disentanglement team for whales that are been disentangled at sea. And we also are part of the stranding network that responds to dead whales on the beach. Oceanographic and environmental concerns. We are in the middle of an El Nino right now, which is a warming offshore climate. There have been a massive harmful algal bloom that happened down south this year that affected dolphins and seals and sea lions. Massive event down in the lower California area. And then we've most recently had a leptospirosis outbreak up here. And so this is what an El Nino does. An El Nino just brings a lot of warm water next to the coast. That warm water is not very nutrient rich, so animals tend to starve because there's not enough food for them to make it. So what we see with El Nino events is typically really emaciated animals coming ashore. We haven't really seen a lot of that yet, but I'm not so sure that we've dodged that bullet quite yet. This was the last event was 2015, and we're looking to see how this most recent El Nino event is going to affect marine mammal populations along the coast. We're part of the National Marine Mammal Stranding Health and Response Program. We are responsible for all of Del Norte, Humboldt, and half of Mendocino County. And we work closely with all of the other stranding networks to share our information so we can look for patterns of stranding along the coast. Our region responsibility, again, is up here. And many of you know because we're already so excited to work with you. But we do respond to dead marine mammals. If you do see one on the beach, you can contact us directly at marinemammals@humboldt.edu, or this is our number. And if you're calling about a sick or injured marine mammal, we work closely with the North Coast Marine Mammal Center. You can call them too. So why do we care about marine mammals? Stranded marine mammals are indicators of ocean health. So if you're seeing animals that are dying on the beach, it's most likely because something's happening outside or out in the ocean. They're a great indicator of human impacts, and those are things that we have some control over, right? We have control over the things that we're causing. And it provides evidence to support management decisions. And so when you think about conservation, these walks and this information that we find on the beach gives evidence and data to make stronger conservation decisions. Question. Yes, yes, anytime, especially Linden. My goodness, if you are walking Centerville Beach, that's one of the hot spots for marine mammal stranding. So please do contact us at marinemammals@humboldt.edu. We'd love to hear any reports from there for sure. Oh, just did that one. So our response includes responding to calls from public, like if Linden finds one the next time they're out on the beach, that they would let us know and we would respond to that, but also these systematic carcass surveys. And as many of you know, we collect the same exact information on each and every carcass, and then we share that information with the National Marine Mammal Stranding Network. We also, again, are part of the Large Whale Entanglement Network, where we work with others to disentangle whales. So why do we do systematic efforts? It's the same thing we've been talking about, right? We're thinking about this long-term data. You standardize the effort so you can get a baseline understanding from which you can look at diversions from that standard. It gives us an early warning, especially up here where we're so remote, right? If you find one oiled animal or one injured or entangled animal, that can be the beginning of an event that if we hadn't seen it, we might not know until it was really far down the road. And so it gives us an early warning system for oiled wildlife and other events that are happening offshore. It helps us identify centers of stranding activity so that we can figure out what the problem is there and what's happening there. And it also supports a quick response, right? So for those of you in our team right now who are walking those beaches, if you found something, a stranded whale, you could say, I know where that whale is. It's on my beach. Come down, and we'd be down in a second, right? So that, well, not a second, a couple hours. But that's kind of the idea, right? That we know the coast really well. And that's why it's been so important to work with local stewards, because you know your coastline better than we do. So let me see, there's a note here. Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, they're amazing. And then how much do they eat every day? The elephant seals? Are you asking, Vanessa? I'm not sure of the exact amount, but they eat pretty much all day. But I'm not sure how much exactly they eat every day. So I wanted to talk to you about a mortality event on our beaches this year, which you have all helped to document amazingly well. And it was a combination of leptospirosis, which is a bacterial infection, the oncoming El Nino, a warm water blob, which means that there's not much food out there, and then sea lions that are potentially been weakened from domoic acid down where they were before they came up here. So there was a massive event here that many of you documented with us. So I want to show you what that looks like. So here's the total number of carcasses we found on the beach. Here's the observation month. And right here, this red line is what this year is like. So you can see that this has been a really unusual year, right? This is what we've been talking about. This is this baseline of understanding. And now you look at this year, 2023, and you go, whoa, something's going on there. Like something really different has happened. And so this is the time when we had that leptospirosis outbreak, and we were saying that it's a fairly overwhelming situation. And now these are the data that show you the extent and the range of that group. So again, this is just the number of strandings we've had versus public reports of this red, and then effort-based finds is this teal. And you could see that there were just many more strandings this year than we've had in the past. The vast majority of the strandings that we have is this blue color, is this California sea lion. It's the animal that strands the most seal and seal lion. The harbor seal is the second most stranded pinniped or seal or sea lion. And then the cetacean observations, we have the vast majority of the cetaceans or the whales and dolphins that strand are porpoises. And then we always have a few gray whales that strand. So we started with these 3 new stewardship hubs, and I just want to sort of give a huge shout out to this and tell you a little bit about them, because it's not only been wonderful learning experience for me and my students to learn from you and from our tribal partners about the amazing nature of the beaches around us, but it's also been incredibly important for our understanding of strandings and in the research and the science that we do. So we have 3 different groups: the Taloa Dene Nation up north, the Bear River Band and Mattole Restoration Council around the Mattole River, and then the Shelter Cove community, which includes Friends of the Lost Coast and others. And so this green area is the Humboldt student sort of area, and then our partners are really covering this other part of the world. And so I'll introduce you to them just quickly. We have the Taloa Dene Nation, and that has 6 segments, 30 kilometers worth of coast up around the Oregon border. This was a gray whale that stranded there that was able to be responded to by both the tribe and our program. The Bear River Band Mattole Marine Mammal Monitoring Section is the other side of the Lost Coast Trail, the Petrolia community, and the Mattole and the Bear River Band. And that was a group that has 8 segments that cover 16 kilometers of coastline. And then finally, the Shelter Cove community, which covers 7 segments and 16 kilometers. And that includes a number of you, which includes the Shelter Cove community, Honeydew community, BLM, Friends of the Lost Coast. And so from this, I just want to show you what impact you've had. And so again, this is a shared community between all sorts of tribal governments and state and local governments, as well as community members. And I just wanted to thank you again for all that you've done to sort of support this work and tell you how valuable it's been. So this is what we found. Community hubs just began starting to do their walks in the spring of 2023. And it counts for over 23% of all of our observations came from these community hubs. So a quarter of what we know about marine mammal strandings came from our community hubs. And here's the Shelter Cove hub. Most of those have been found on effort-based finds because there's not a lot of people walking those beaches, right? Much of that has been found on effort-based walks. And a similar thing has been found on the Mattole and up in Taloa. So I just wanted to show you like how significant your contributions have been and how it's helping us build a new baseline for areas that we weren't able to cover before. This is what we found here, 2023. This is the number of observations. And this green arrow is the Shelter Cove community here, as well as the Mattole and the Taloa, as well as state and national parks. Pretty exciting. I'm pretty excited about that. So the significance of community stewardship, it helps us build a deeper understanding and relationship with each other, as well as with the habitat and the coastline. And if you'd like to join our community, if you're not already here, Justin, who introduced himself earlier, is the sort of community coordinator, and you can contact him, or you can contact us and we'll point you in the right direction to work with Flora or with us or Melanie. So strength lies in community. We have local community members, a number of tribes, and we're just so thrilled to be working on this larger conservation problem with you. And I'm so excited to see what we're going to find out in addition to what we've already learned this year. So I'm going to take the last 2 minutes, and I'm sorry, I know it's hard to sit on a Zoom for this long, but I appreciate you sticking it out with me. Just to talk about this new project. And I know in Shelter Cove, there's this beautiful little harbor seal colony that people are very concerned about and very interested in and have a lot of, and care a lot about. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this harbor seal program we're starting here. It's from this One Health perspective. And the One Health perspective is saying that you can't really study a single organism, the health of a single organism, without understanding the health of the environment and without understanding cultural health, right? And so we want to think about having human health, wildlife health, environmental health, and cultural health all kind of coming together. And our community hubs are perfect for that, right? It's really my whole philosophy is based on that. And so what we're doing is we're developing a new collaborative project studying harbor seals from this perspective. And part of this came about in relation to the incoming wind energy and to the idea that some of the dams are coming down or have come down. And we want to sort of look to see the whole health, the One Health of those areas using harbor seals or working with harbor seals as indicators of marine health. And so we're excited about this project. And I'll talk to you more about that another time. But I did want to give you a couple of nature nuggets about harbor seals before we end. And so harbor seals are facing a number of issues. If you've ever been around harbor seals, which you do see them there, they're really skittish. They get spooked and they get disturbed really quickly, right? And so human interactions really do impact them. Climate change is affecting them as well as every other marine organism. Increased predation, and I want to talk to you about that quickly. A paper has recently come out about the impact of coyotes on harbor seals and that they are preying heavily upon them down south. And we have seen evidence of coyote predation on harbor seals here too. And I know some of you have seen harbor seals out on the colony. I mean, not harbor seals, but coyotes out on your walks and so we know that coyotes are here right now, knock wood. They're not really causing a huge impact, but we are going to start tracking that to see what kind of impact they would have. So if you see coyotes out on your walks, or if you see them out on the beaches, it'd be great to hear from you and know about that. And then wind energy, it may impact harbor seals. We would like to study that. We would like to see if the sort of development of the infrastructure of wind energy has any impact on harbor seals. And if so, how can we mitigate that to make sure that they can live in harmony with green energy and human development? So, okay, that's enough. If you're interested in moving forward, if you're interested in becoming part of this program down around Shelter Cove or around the Atoll or in Humboldt County, please give us a call, as well as please let us know if you see any critters that you find on the beach. We'd love to hear about them and record them so we can learn more about stranded marine mammals along the coast. And I wanted to thank you, everyone, for coming, and Justin again and Friends of the Lost Coast for hosting such a great speaker series and for inviting me to come and get to see you and check in with you today. So thanks, everyone, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks so much, Dawn. Yeah, we'd like to open this up for anybody who's interested to turn on your camera. We're also going to change the security setting to allow people to to unmute themselves in case they have a question. And in the meantime, I do. With the leptospirosis outbreak, I'm wondering if we have any data on local mortality as it relates to mortality that we saw in the larger California coast.
Yeah, we are still trying to pull that together for the whole coast. And so most stranding programs have an idea about how many animals that have died. And now we're just trying to sort of go through and say this was likely a leptospirosis case because we didn't do diagnostics for all of the animals that died, so that we could get the samples for leptospirosis on everyone here. So that's the kind of next step, to sort of take that mortality event and try to tease it apart, which ones were likely and which ones were confirmed leptospirosis. So we just don't have that information now, but we might have it in the coming months, and I'll share it with you.
It sounds like it was pretty dramatic in other locales as well.
Oh, yes, yes. I mean, that's what happened this year. We had a massive domoic acid sort of event down south. And then up here, we had this massive leptospirosis. So the pinniped populations were hit pretty hard this year, for sure.
Gotcha. And then another question I have is about the wind energy project locally. I mean, obviously that's there's a lot of data that needs to still be collected about how populations are affected by that. But I wonder, is that something that you and your team are consulting on as they work on this project locally?
Yeah, I was at the Tribal Wind Energy Summit today, and we've been working and talking with all of the sort of stakeholders in that group, and are here to share our expertise with them and hopefully propose some of these studies that would help us understand more about the impacts on marine mammals of wind energy development.
Thank you.
You're
It looks
welcome.
like we have a question in the chat. What spreads or carries leptospirosis?
Leptospirosis is bacterial. It's thought that it can be spread. It's definitely spread between seals, but it is also is a zoonotic disease, so it can be spread between organisms. There's some idea that it can be transmitted to from dogs and things on the beach. If they have leptospirosis, they can spread it via urine into seals and sea lions and vice versa. And can
Great.
it
It
be
looks
shared with
very good.
carrion, you said? Um, can leptospirosis be transmitted to carrion feeders such as condors? I don't think so, Chemset, but I would check on that again. But it's mostly a mammalian. I believe it's mostly a mammalian disease. In long-term study of stellar sea lions in California, yes, CZ, there are. We've been studying stellar sea lions since 2012 with the National Marine Mammal Lab, and they have two colonies up here, one off of Crescent City, off of the lighthouse, and then one off of Rogue Reef in Southern Oregon. So we've been working with them to study and track the numbers of animals, and we have some marked animals that we track over time, kind of like our elephant seals are tracked. So we've been doing long-term studies on them as well. California sea lions, not as much. The California sea lions are studied heavily down south. That's where they breed, in the Channel Islands area. And then they migrate up here during the winter time. And there's not a lot of work that's being done up here, partially because it's really hard to get out on the water at this time of year, as you can imagine. But most of the work is being done down south, except for the rehab and for the stranding work that we do up here.
I don't know if we answered this question earlier, but Vanessa asked, do you have public information posted regarding the stranded marine mammal program? I assume
I
that
do
means
have,
trailheads.
thanks, Vanessa. I do have a website, but in terms of other public information, aside from the website, no. But we do have some signs posted at the beginning and end of the Lost Coast Trail. And we do have the trail stewards oftentimes share that information with people that are hiking on the trail. At different trailheads, we do have, if you find a sick or injured or dead marine mammal, please call us. But in terms of anything broader than that, that's all we have right now.
Several questions in the chat here. I'll just go to the top. Is lepto expected to get worse when we see climate warming patterns, or is that not considered a factor?
Gosh, these are great questions, you guys. It's not necessarily affected by temperature, water temperature, but it is cyclical in nature. And we're just trying to figure out what those cycles are. It used to be fairly predictable, as I recall, every 4 years or so. But we're just looking to see how to predict the next cycle of lepto coming around. And I don't know the details about that, but I don't think it's associated with climate warming patterns. And Lindsay, are you involved in the proposal to bridge the northern and southern sea otter populations? I am not involved in that proposal. I will tell you, Lynn, what I know about that in terms of we have found in the stranding network, we have found 2 dead sea otters in our surveys over the last 25 years. One was a subadult male that through the genetic analysis was from the northern population, and one was a southern juvenile male from the southern population. And so we've had 2 roamer juvenile males that kind of ended up on our beaches, but that's as much as I know about them in our area for sure. And are surfers using the Lost Coast beach with the elephant seals? That's a good question. I don't see surfers out there. It's kind of challenging to get out there. I think the place where surfers are is closer down to Shelter Cove. What's that big something? Big Flat is where most of the surfers go down there, which is 15 or so miles south of that area. So no, not many surfers up there. Please put the website address in chat. Okay, you can do that. Maybe. Gosh, you guys are asking such great questions. Let me see. Anything else? Any other questions?
There's another question. It's how disturbing is the Lost Coast Trail at this moment by passing so close to the colony?
I have to tell you that's an issue, you guys. It's hard because the NOAA suggests that people stay 50 to 100 yards away from marine mammals. And if you saw in that picture that Justin posted, right now the seals are on the trail. They're just laying there. And so it's really hard to do that. In some places, it's really constricted. So I always encourage hikers, and we talk to them every single time we're out there, to stay as far away as possible, because especially at this time of year, the males are really dynamic and really alert and really aware and can move surprisingly fast, right? So they're surprisingly fast. So there are times when you're walking on the Lost Coast Trail and you don't even see that it's an elephant seal because they just kind of are laying there, and it surprises people. So we always give the advice to always, if you're out there with a dog, always keep the dog on a leash, always keep it right next to you. And then to be alert as you're hiking. And if you see a marine mammal, stay as far away as possible. Never go down on the beach in that area, ever. Don't ever go on the beach, but stay up on the trail and on the bluff to keep yourself and the seals as safe as possible. Sorry, I didn't mean to be all on my soapbox there. I just want to keep people safe because it's the more elephant seals that are out there, the more surprising that can be. And if you're not going in prepared for that, then you won't know to stay far away. So keep your dogs close, not only for leptospirosis, but for also to keep the elephant seals safe, and then just stay as far away as you can there.
I bet you've seen some pretty crazy public behavior at Punta Gorda too.
Oh my goodness.
Near the elephant seals, huh?
Oh my goodness. And it's not because people are mean or bad. It's just that they're just not informed, right? And so it's just up to us to sort of help them do the right thing. And I really do feel like people want to sort of help animals as much as they can. They just sometimes don't understand. You see on television shows people going up and males are going like this, and people are just getting right there, and they don't realize that they could be squashed kind of in an instant. So it's more education and just trusting that people want to do the right thing.
On behalf of Friends of the Lost Coast and the Bureau of Land Management King Range National Conservation Area, thank you for tuning in to Lost Coast Lectures. To view the complete archive of recordings from this series, or to learn more about our work inspiring a passion for nature, visit Friends of the Lost Coast online at lostcoast.org.